All right, let's get started. Did I give you guys a definition for counseling?
No.
All right, so I want to give you a working definition this morning and to have a discussion around the definition. Yeah. All right, so counseling basically is assisting people to change or to cope with change that has occurred. What do you understand by that statement? Assisting people to change or to cope with change that has occurred?
I believe it is saying that counseling is to help people to change certain behavior or to work on this behavior and to get the right attitude, or else if they were living a certain way that was probably right, but they are taking the wrong way, the wrong road, then you will help that person now to get back to where he is, or to where he was. Sorry.
Okay.
All right.
For me, it's simply saying this. You're helping people to change or cope with change. Well, first things first is that this is helping people to adjust their mind to move forward from the space that they're in, which is dangerous, and making them adjust their mind to that which has moved forward and they have not caught up, basically.
Okay. All right. All right.
Your camera off. Your mic off, you know.
Roy?
Yes, sir.
Give me your understanding of the statement that was there.
Counseling in this sense, it helps people to make the right decision. Suppose they were going through something in life and they just need somebody to assist them in making the right decision. So I think counseling is one of the key ingredients that they could use to change that behavior.
All right. Yeah, good. But you're right. You're on track. So basically it is, yeah. And all of you had different elements of what we're getting at. It is helping people to make the right decisions about their lives in terms of challenges, issues, problems, decisions that will bring about change or help them to cope with some kind of change that has taken place, right? And if you would remember, one of the first things I said when we started looking at this is that a counselor does not tell a client what to do, right? That is not our purview. We don't tell the client that you need to make this decision or that decision. What we are doing is that we are equipping them with the tools to make those decisions for themselves, right? Understood?
Yes.
In other words, your whole duty as a counselor is to is to get the client to a place where they can function as an individual. In other words, you as the counselor cannot become a crutch to the client. Because the truth is, you are not always going to be in the space of the client, right? You can't spend 24 hours a day with the person who needs counseling, don't it?
No, sir.
So when you are absent, and as a matter of fact, the one who comes to counseling spends far less time away from the counselor than they spend with the counselor, right? Most counseling sessions don't last for more than 45 minutes to an hour. Can go longer, but the person who comes to counseling basically is going to spend far more time away from the counselor than they do with them. And
Yes,
when they are away from the presence of the counselor, they are expected to make decisions about their lives, about what is going on with them. That is going to put them in a position where they benefit, where they are able to make decisions that will affect their lives in a positive way. So by that virtue, you cannot become the crutch for the client, right?
yes, sir.
One of the things that, and it is somewhat a difficult thing to do in our context, because we often have to function as both minister and counselor, don't it?
Yes, sir, we do.
So, but even in that space, and that's why we look at pastoral counseling and care are very important elements of our lives as ministers. But you have to be able also to separate the different compartments, because sometimes they overlap and can overlap very dangerously. So in other words, as a counselor who is offering care in a congregation, though you have the ability based on your training to counsel just about any situation, it doesn't mean that everybody in your congregation, well, maybe it is better for you not to even counsel anybody in your congregation. Why? You ever hear the term dual relationships?
No, sir, first time.
I hear them use the term bilateral transfer.
Bilateral transfer, dual relationships, transference.
Yes.
In other words,
I've heard that before.
The interpersonal relationship that you have with your congregation makes it very unhealthy for you to counsel sometimes without bias. All right? And let me give you a scenario. You are counseling somebody in your congregation who, well, we can use two scenarios. Married. A sister in the congregation who is married and her husband is not a member of the church, but she is. And she is having a problem with her husband, and she comes to you to counsel both her and her husband. How do you function in that? Because that's what you call a dual relationship. So in other words, you are more inclined to be biased towards who?
The woman.
Why?
Because she's a member of the
church. Yes.
And because you share, no, well, you wouldn't be biased towards her, you'd be biased towards the husband. Because she is a member of the congregation, you share a relationship. And so, it might cause some kind of problem. It may also be that you have two persons in the congregation who are married, who are members of the church, who are having problems and come to you for counseling. How do you do that now? How do you do that objectively?
Yes.
Can you be objective in such a situation?
And then tailor your sermon afterward to make you look like academia through word at the same time.
Exactly. Right? Can you really be objective in a situation like that? Yes, you can, but it is very dangerous ground, right?
Yes, sir. Mostly
So
if one of
sometimes,
these members
uh,
is, I was saying mostly if one of these two persons are a member of your family, like your blood family, for example.
mhm. Well, that even makes the situation even more complicated,
Yes, sir.
right? Because you are no doubt going to be accused of being biased towards one party based on the relationship that you share with them,
Yes, sir.
right? So you in other words, you have to be able to compartmentalize the different. And by the way, it is not suggesting that you as the pin as these persons minister would not get involved at some point, because they are members of your congregation. So more than likely the first point of reference to deal with issues would be you, right? 95% of the time the first point of reference to deal with issues in people's life when it comes to the church is their minister. And so it says that you must equip yourself to make sure that you can at least get the ball rolling until you can refer them to different persons who will help them, right? The unfortunate thing is that many of our ministers are not equipped to do that. They actually sometimes may cause more problems than solutions by giving people the wrong advice in situations.
Or telling them what to do.
Or telling them what to do, right? We have to be very, very, very careful of how you see it. And as I said, we in any situation we are wearing sometimes three hats. If you are a counselor,
Yes, sir.
and you're a minister, how do you separate those two things when it comes to solving issues in your congregation? And you see, but you have to be very conscious that this is part of the reality that you have to deal with. Make sense?
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
So, in that situation, sir, would you allow them to go outside of the church to get counseling?
Yes, I would. I would refer them to somebody else. Seems like you agree or you don't?
Sir, I don't disagree. It's a wise idea.
Mm-hmm. And there are many counselors who you can refer to, and that is one of the reasons why even as ministers you have to have a network to work with. You can't just be a minister in your own little corner thinking that you are not going to need the help of other persons. So you have to have a network of persons, especially when it comes to dealing with the kind of issues that people deal with on a daily basis. So who needs counseling? Everyone. At some point in time, people need some kind of intervention in their lives. And by the way, counseling does not always have to be crisis critical. Not necessarily. People can have different challenges for different reasons. So in other words, counseling, somebody who needs counseling, it doesn't have to be life-threatening, right? Don't have to be a major crisis. It can just be a decision that you need to make, and you need help. Sometimes, yeah, go ahead.
A question. Before you give anybody consent, do you have to go pray first? Just as you know, we have certain examples in the Ancient Testament.
Do you have to do what?
To pray, like when Pharaoh had the dreams and stuff, and he knows that the famine was going to come. He had he asked Joseph for advice. Daniel also has been asked for advice, and they say to the kings, all right, just give me some time to pray about it, and I will give you an answer back. So do we have to do something similar?
Well, I would expect that as a Christian counselor, prayer is part of what you do. Right? But as to whether or not you want to expect an answer like Pharaoh or Joseph, then that's another thing. but you see, and as a matter of fact, when persons come to us to have their issues addressed, they are coming to us knowing that we are people of faith. And if we are people of faith, then they must expect that prayer will be part of what we do. Right? If you don't want prayer to be part of your counseling, don't go to a Christian counselor. Simple. Right? If you don't want the God factor to be a part of the discussion, then you shouldn't go to a Christian counselor. Because naturally, by the virtue of the fact that they are Christians, it means that prayer is going to be part of what they are doing. Well, hopefully.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Hopefully
he's right.
Yeah, but we often take it for granted that, and as a matter of fact, I think I made mention of this before, that many persons, I don't know if it's a majority, but many persons, when they go for counseling, they prefer to go to somebody who has a spiritual orientation. Right? Yes. People really prefer that kind of.
Even if not a Christian.
Even if the person is not a Christian, from some spiritual perspective, people prefer that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? So in other words, and the unfortunate thing is that, well, in the US it is different, because you have a whole arm dedicated towards pastoral. So pastoral counseling in the States is a whole discipline by itself. Right? You can be licensed as a pastoral counselor, you can be licensed as a counselor. It's a whole discipline by itself. Not so in Jamaica. We have not reached there yet.
So basically, all I want in Jamaica is only licensed as counselors.
Well, I personally, like for Raquel is licensed by the Jamaica Psychological Association, because even though Raquel did her degree at Caribbean Graduate School of Theology, what Raquel did was a master's in counseling and psychology. My master's is in pastoral counseling and psychology. So I have done more Bible-oriented courses in my master's than what Raquel did. Right? So my master's degree is from a purely not a purely spiritual perspective, because all of the courses that Raquel would have done in her master's, I would have had to do same way, but I did a lot more biblical work. Right? Now, the Jamaica Psychological Association does not accept my degree as part of their licensure, but it doesn't stop me from counseling, because I counsel within the context of the church, because I work with the church.
Hold on, wait. So them would have licensed Raquel, but them don't want to license you within, basically.
No, they don't accept, because and it's the same, because as a matter of fact, I would have done more courses than even what Raquel did, because I did almost every course that I had a biblical element towards it. Right? But it doesn't stop me from counseling, because I work within the context of the church.
Okay.
And I am a marriage counselor, I'm a marriage officer and all of that. So I can operate within under the umbrella of the church.
So if you are supposed to now say you're gonna get a private practice now, you would have to go.
I couldn't go open an office.
Oh, But Raquel can open my office door.
But Raquel can. As soon as she get the hours, she can. But I would not be able to open a private office. I can operate within the context of the church. It don't mean that I can't have my office at the church. But whatever I do has to be done within the context of the church.
Okay.
And that for me is deliberate, by the way. That's something that I specifically wanted to do. I want to make sure that what I offer is offered from the perspective of the church and Christianity and what I believe. And so anybody comes to me for counseling, know that straight up I'm going to operate from a purely Christian perspective when it comes to what I do. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
So who needs counseling? Everyone, as I said, including the minister and the counselor. Even counselors have their own counselors. What are the reasons? Because we are fallen people. The perfection that was created in the Garden of Eden has been broken. And so we are really a broken set of people. And what we are trying to do is to repair ourselves. So as long as life lasts, counseling will be relevant. People will need to be counseled. Right?
Yes, sir. Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. To add to what you just said, one of the reasons why we will need, even if you are a counselor, you will need another counselor, is because we as human beings, most of the time, are not honest with ourselves. We don't
That's
want to look
true.
at the reality.
True.
Yes, sir.
You know, one of the things that is very interesting is that a lot of times when people come to you with issues, they actually know the solution to the issue already.
Yes, sir.
Many times people come to you, Ian and Roy, with their different challenges. It's not that they don't know what is the solution to the problem. What they come to you for is for you to help them to work through it so that they can come to a wholesome decision. All right?
Yes, sir.
When we counsel, note faith working through love. So we have to have a basic understanding of how the love of God works and how it affects humanity. And so the minister has to have a particular demeanor about him, has to be motivated by love. You can't be brash and caring and unloving and this is not just in the context of counseling, but even in the context of ministry itself. Right? Yeah, we sometimes pride ourselves of telling telling people like it is, but yeah, there's a place for that. But you have to operate from a place of love. How would Christ be in the same situation that you are faced with? What would be the response of Jesus? And one of my favorite points of reference is Jesus' attitude towards the woman at the well and the woman caught in adultery in the book of John. Both these women were in a position that, based on Jewish tradition, deserved condemnation. And Jesus behaved the total opposite of what Jewish tradition dictated. The woman caught in adultery, based on the law of Moses, should have been stoned. Jesus responded to her in what? With compassion.
Yes, sir.
The woman at the well was a Samaritan woman, should not have been at the well at the time when Jesus was there. Jesus was not supposed to be talking to her. But Jesus responded opposite of how the tradition dictated. And so we have to remember that when we deal with people, we have to deal with people based on the compassion of Jesus Christ. So we have to be willing to handle people the way that God would handle them, to respond to people and their issues the way that God would. So yes, we have to take off the hat of judgment. When people come to it, and that is why one of the reasons, brothers, we have to be prepared as counselors, as ministers, to hear just about anything without responding in shock. Right? And the truth is, you will hear some of the most shocking stories, some of the most shocking behaviors from people that will literally blow you out of your seat. And you have to respond in such a way that you are non-judgmental towards the individual so that you can begin to help them. Because I can tell you, if somebody comes to you for help and they know that you are judging them, they will not come back again.
No.
Right? The minute they sense that you are sitting in a place of judgment, regardless of what they have done, you won't see them a second time. So the brother who has committed adultery and come to you as the minister to voice how he's feeling and what he's going through based on what he has done. You can't sit in that seat and then behave as if, boy, he's the worst sinner on earth.
Say, boy, you got hell, you know.
And then you will tell him and all of that. No, that's not what he came for. He also, regardless of what he has done, deserves the compassion of Jesus Christ. And you have to treat him on that basis.
Well, the fact him come to you also means that he is admitting same the wrong then.
He's crying out for help, because he would not come to you if he's not asking for, if he's not crying out for help. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I don't know if that is going to be right exactly, but as we talk about that, you know, my mind goes back to Jesus Christ, who was living with his disciples, knowing that among them there is a, you know, like an enemy, I would say, Judah, who was going to betray him. He knew he was going to do it, but still he was with them, you know, living and stuff. He was not judging or blaming him for anything at all.
Yeah.
So I think that's the kind of meekness we should have when we are approaching these situations.
Yeah, true. And as I said, you have to prepare yourself to hear some of the shocking details of people's lives.
You said the worst.
Right, the worst of the worst. And you have to sit there in a position of non-judgment. Right? It's oftentimes not a pretty thing to deal with. Right? Some people behave in ways sometimes that are unprecedented. I have had to sit down and hear some of the most shocking details of people's lives. And I have to always remember that my duty in this context here is to treat people with the love of God. Not that I am going to cover their sins and whitewash it. No, because you have to be able to be in the position also to let people know that their behavior is sinful and unacceptable by God. But it is the way how you do it that makes a difference. Right? Wayne Oates says, every knowledge of the human heart, every skill in dealing with human problems is as dangerous as it is useful. And ordinarily, it is the presence or absence of the love of Christ that makes the difference. Wonderful statement there. It is the presence or absence of the love of Christ that makes the difference, right? Wayne Oates is a long-time Christian counselor. I think he's dead now. I'm not sure if he's still alive. But he has written several books on Christian counseling, right? And
Yes,
as I
sir.
said, Christian counseling is a discipline by itself, right? And it is worthy of exploration, right? The context in which we counsel as Christians, as ministers of the gospel, is very useful to the kind of climate that we live in and we exist in and work in today. The effectiveness of counseling, the basic characteristics of a helping relationship are what? Accurate empathy, non-possessive warmth, a real interest in the person, a sincere concern for him or her, and outgoing positive action involved in active personal participation. What does that mean? Accurate empathy here means that you have to be able to put yourself, and this is where the non-judgmental thing comes in.
Yes, sir. Like you
You
put
have to be
yourself.
able to put yourself in the person's position.
Yes.
Whatever position they are in, put yourself there and look at how they would feel in this position. And if you were in the same position, how would you want to be treated? Non-possessive warmth, the real interest in person. If you're not, you can, and this is not only for counseling, but for ministry itself. You cannot be an effective minister or counselor without having a real interest in people.
Yes, sir.
Right? If you don't have an interest in people's lives, don't get involved in ministry. Do something else.
Yes, sir.
You have to have a real, genuine concern for what people go through. Make sense?
Yes, sir. Some of us are always ready to condemn.
Mm-hmm. And if you're going to do that, neither ministry nor counseling is for you. Genuineness, personal participation, active. You have to be actively involved in dealing with people's situation. It's not something that you can do today and tomorrow you put it off. People come to you in crisis and people come to you in different kinds of crisis. Somebody comes to you and they are suicidal. You can't tell them that come back tomorrow when I have more time.
So, sir, I know you probably would have been in that position already. You know, as ministers, we are supposed to be clear-headed. We are supposed to have a mind that is at peace. So while you are dealing with all these situations and people are saying things to you, as you have said earlier, that are the worst of their life, and sometimes there are things that you would not expect from that person or you wouldn't believe. It's like you trusted that person and then he or she just, break down this trust that you had in him or in her. Now you will have maybe to live with that. While you go in your bed at night, you are thinking, man, sister or brother, so and so did that. And then how do you deal with that while these things are going?
I am past that now, Solin. That no longer affects me. I am prepared now. Nothing surprises me where people's lives are concerned. Nothing. I have learned over the years that people are capable of doing just about anything. So I don't put people on pedestals, right? I do not have unrealistic expectations of people because I know, based on my experience, that the best of us is capable of doing anything, right? So hardly anything surprises me. It might surprise other people based on their experience, but it really doesn't surprise me because I have seen people do some of the strangest things in terms of their personal decisions and their lives. I have seen people make some decisions that probably in my first or second year of counseling would have shocked my wits, shocked me to death. It no longer does, because I have realized that based on human nature, I remember that I said what we are fallen people. I realized that the fallen part of us will behave in ways that are unseeming, ungodly, sinful, and just about anybody is capable of doing it. Right?
Yes, sir.
So I have learned not to evaluate people based on who I think they are. So Solin do this and Ian won't do it. Whatever Solin do, Ian will do also. You just have to put him in the right place or the wrong place for that matter.
Yes, sir.
Right? It's just that sometimes we say that some people would not commit murder. Yeah, right. That's not necessarily true. Put them in the context where they have to make certain kind of decisions and see what happens.
Yes, sir.
Right? They commit murder without thinking twice.
Yes, sir. I believe, sometimes we have to be honest, because, the Bible says that the mind or the thinking of man was constantly evil. It is true. The only thing that hinders us from doing certain things is because we renew our mind in Jesus Christ, but we are still capable of the things that those in the world are doing. We may choose not to do it.
True.
But we have it. We think about it, but we may not do it. Like when somebody kick you or slap you in the face, the primary instinct is to kick back.
Some years ago, Solin and Roy and Ian, one of our ministers in the States, very noted minister, I don't remember what is his name now, but he was a very popular minister, married with children, was in the ministry for many years, helped many persons, was very faithful, good preacher, everything, man who was upstanding. And he went out and had an affair. And the woman who he had the affair with got pregnant. And the man murdered his family, his 2 children and his wife. The man murdered his family to cover up the adultery that he had committed. And he's now in prison serving a life sentence. How do you come to that place where you even begin to understand how can a human being do something like that, claiming that they are Christians? Yeah, but the truth is, if we put ourselves in sinful situations, then just about anything can happen.
Yes, sir.
And it really doesn't matter who we are. Don't matter how popular you are as a preacher. Don't matter how godly you think you are. If we put ourselves in sinful situations, then it will cause us to make certain decisions that will lead to certain consequences.
Yes, sir.
All right? So, characteristics of a counselor. And this is also true of ministers. Humility, love, faithfulness, spiritual maturity. All of these are important. Right? You're functional, you must be able to build relationships, understanding the environment of those persons that come to you. Communication is important, right? And the ability to have an action plan. So long, and that's why I really encourage you guys who are going to be involved in ministry. As I said, you don't have to go get a master's, because if you don't plan to be in counseling full-time like myself, you don't need necessarily to get these kind of qualifications. But what I strongly suggest is that you start doing your own reading, right? Because it helps. It helps you, because whether or not you get a master's degree, people are still going to come to you for counseling. Just by the virtue that you are a minister. Right? As long as they hear that you're a minister, they're going to come to you with some kind of issue that they have. And if you can't handle it, you will need to refer them to somebody else. Because there's basic counseling. Many of our ministers, we can't handle basic counseling, basic issues. Everything that people come to you need 6 and 10 counseling sessions.
Yes,
and
sir.
people come to you for those kind of things, and you must be prepared to give the right advice so that people will be able to make decisions that will affect change in their lives. Right?
All right, sir. Yes, sir. That's all right.
All right. So let us stop there because it's soon time for chapel. Next week we will continue to look at some more of the effectiveness of counseling, of a counselor and so forth.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right. See you for chat.